Hello everyone, welcome to Apti Plus Academy for Civil Services. Today I am here to cover the most important aspect of the economy of Odisha, that is the economic survey of Odisha 2024-25, and this economic survey is going to be very important for OPSC exam and all the state PCS exams that is conducted within the Odisha. And this is also important for the UPSC examinations, those who are preparing for the UPSC, because the economy of Odisha will be compared with the economy of the other states and India in this video. So for this reason, this economic survey analysis is going to be very important and very crisp. Okay, so after watching this video, you do not have to read the economic survey of India from any other document. So for this reason, watch this video till the end. So having said that, let us begin the analysis of the Odisha economic survey 2024-25. So firstly, this Odisha economic survey talks about the introduction. So in the introduction, this economic survey says that India's GDP, the GDP of India, is the fifth largest in the world as per the IMF in the year 2023. So Odisha's economic survey firstly talks about the GDP of India, and so far as the GDP of Odisha is concerned, GDP of Odisha was adversely hit by the pandemic in the 2021. In the 2020-21, but despite the adverse effect of the pandemic in the Odisha's economy recovered at a very rapid pace, and for this reason the economy of Odisha today is very resilient and it is growing at a very fast pace. And talking about the economic growth, this is the most important aspect of the economic survey. The economic growth of Odisha saw phenomenal growth. There was a growth of economy at a rapid pace, and in the absolute term, the value of the GSDP of Odisha was 8.3 lakh crore. Okay, so this is the GSDP of Odisha in absolute number, 8.3 lakh crore, which is the US dollar $100.6 billion. Okay, so this is the GSDP of Odisha at the current scenario. Okay, so you have to remember this point, $100.6 billion, and the current GSDP of Odisha, which is 8.3 lakh crore, is the 2.82% of India's GDP. So in the India's GDP, Odisha's GDP contributes around 3%, which is 2.82%. Okay, so you have to remember this value. So absolute numbers are asked, and so far as the India's overall GDP, when the GDP of Odisha, GSDP of Odisha is compared with the other states, the position of Odisha is 13th. Okay, so position of Odisha is 13th so far as the GSDP of other states are concerned. So Maharashtra has the highest GDP in India. Okay, so in India, the state with the highest GDP is the Maharashtra, which has 36.5 lakh crore GSDP. Okay, in the second number there is Tamil Nadu, then there is Karnataka, then there is Uttar Pradesh, Gujarat, West Bengal. Position of West Bengal is 6th. Then there is Rajasthan, there is Telangana, there is Andhra Pradesh, there is Madhya Pradesh, Kerala, Haryana and Odisha. Okay, so this is an important point. So Odisha ka position kya hai? 13th hai. So you have to remember this point. Now moving on to next important topic, which is the growth rate. What was the growth rate of Odisha? So in the absolute number, we saw that the GSDP of Odisha is 8.3 lakh crore, but in terms of percentage of growth, that is how much the GDP of Odisha grow compared to the past year, that is the GSDP of Odisha in absolute number is the 8.5% in 2023-24. Okay, so while that of India was 8.2%. So compared to India, the GDP of Odisha grew at a rate which is higher than the Indian GDP. Okay, so India's GDP grew by 8.2%. So in the economic survey I covered last time, there I talked about the growth rate of India. Okay, so everything was covered in the last video about the economy of India. So economic survey of India has been covered in the Apti Plus. You can watch the video in the playlist, and you can see the growth of Odisha, that is 8.5%. so when it is compared with India, this grew by 0.3 percentage point more than that of India. Okay, so you have to remember this point. Now moving on to next important point, which is the GSDP of Odisha from 2018-19 to 2022-23. So the GSDP of Odisha that I just talked was about the GSDP which was 2023-24. Okay, in 2023-24 what was the GSDP? But if we see the GSDP from 2018-19 to 2022-23, the state GSDP growth rate was 5.3% and it was 7th in all India levels. Okay, so in the past 5 years, in the past 5 to 6 years, the growth rate, average growth rate of Odisha was 5.3%. Okay, so do not get confused with the previous growth rate, that is this year's growth rate I just talked about, which is 8.5%. In the year 2023-24, but in the previous 5 years the average growth rate of Odisha was 5.3% and it was 7th in all India levels. So Chhattisgarh had seen the highest growth rate in this period. So this is an important point. And you can see the position of Odisha, which is 7th. And talking about the sectoral composition, what is the sectoral composition of growth? Which sector contributed more or which sector contributed less in the economy of Odisha, in the growth of Odisha? And talking about the sectoral composition, with the size of nearly INR 1.5 lakh crore in 2023-24, agriculture and allied sector contributes around 20.4% to the state GDP. So agriculture and allied sector contributed 20.4% in the Odisha's GDP. Industry had contribution which is 43.3% and services sector has a contribution 36.3%. So this is an important fact. So when you compare the GDP sectoral composition of the different sectors in the GDP of Odisha vis-a-vis the GDP of India, then you can see that in the GDP of India, the services sector contributes the highest amount, which is the 54.7%. But if you see the economy of Odisha, the industry sector, industrial sector contributes the highest percentage, which is the 43.3%. So Odisha is, we can say, is a more industrialized state. There is high number of industries. For this reason, the industrial growth in Odisha is high. And talking about the agriculture, इंडिया में जो एग्रीकल्चर का कंट्रीब्यूशन है जीडीपी में कितना है 17.7%. बट इफ़ यू सी द इकोनॉमी ऑफ ओडिशा में एग्रीकल्चर का जो कंट्रीब्यूशन है दैट इज 20.4%. ठीक है, सो दिस इज एन इम्पॉर्टेंट पॉइंट. एंड अनदर इज इंडस्ट्री. सो यू कैन सी the industrial growth. ठीक है, so this is the industry in Odisha and India. In all India level this is 27.6% and in Odisha this is 43.3%. ठीक है, so this is the contribution of these two sectors in the economy of two countries, to Odisha and the India. ठीक है, so you can know about the contribution of different sectors. ठीक है, now moving on to the numbers. ठीक है, if you see the numbers, I talked about the in the absolute number the contribution of agriculture and allied sector is 1.5 lakh crore. ठीक है, and in the absolute number the contribution of industry in the GDP of Odisha is 3.1 lakh crore. ठीक है, industrial sector 3.1 lakh crore. ठीक है, you can see it is almost double. ठीक है, it is almost double when it comes to Odisha. When it comes to industry. ठीक है, in the Odisha the contribution of industry when it is compared with the agricultural sector it is almost double, and services sector contribution to this VA is approximately 2.6 lakh crore. ठीक है, so this is the sectoral contribution of the economy in Odisha's GDP. Moving on to an important sector which is the agriculture and allied sector. So when it comes to agriculture and allied sector, the agriculture and allied sector is contributed mostly by the crops. ठीक है, so crops has the highest percentage of the contribution which is the 59%. So 59% of Odisha's GSDP is contributed by the crops. ठीक है, next one is you can see the 16.7% that is contributed by livestock. Then there is forestry and logging which contributes 13.8%, and there is fishing and aquaculture. ठीक है, so highest percentage of Odisha's agriculture is contributed by the crops. ठीक है, so now moving on to next percentage, and you have to know the percentage as well. 59%. ग्रोथ ऑफ सब सेक्टर्स, ठीक है, एग्रीकल्चर में सब सेक्टर का कितना ग्रोथ हो रहा है, विच सेक्टर कॉन्ट्रीब्यूट्स द हाइएस्ट, विच सेक्टर ऑफ द एग्रीकल्चर इन इंडिया इन ओडिशा ग्रू द हाइएस्ट परसेंटेज, ठीक है. टॉकिंग अबाउट दैट, फॉरेस्ट्री एंड लॉगिंग grew at the highest percentage point, which is 5.5%, ठीक है. So forestry, of all the sub sectors of the agriculture in Odisha, the forestry sector grew by 5.5%, ठीक है. And next comes the 3.6%, which is the fishing and aquaculture. Then there is agriculture and allied sector that grew by 3.5%, ठीक है. So this is an important point. Now moving on to food grain production. So between 1990 and 1991 to 2022-23, the population multiplied by 1.45 times, ठीक है. So population of Odisha grew by 1.45 times between from these years, which is 1991 to 2022-23, ठीक है. But the food grain production grew by 2.0 times. That means the food grain production in Odisha was higher than the population growth of Odisha. So this again the violates the important theory of the population, which is called the Malthusian theory of population. So if you have read about this Malthusian theory of population, so this is very important term in so far as the population and food production is concerned. So this Malthusian theory of population, what it says is that the food production grows at the arithmetic ratio, ठीक है. So this food production grows at arithmetic ratio, but when it comes to the population growth happens at the geometric ratio, ठीक है. That means the population growth happens at more faster pace when it compared with the food production, ठीक है. But in case of Odisha, the food production is higher than the population growth, ठीक है. So that is an important point. So you have to remember this the theory, which is Malthusian theory. So now moving on to next term, which is the food grain production, ठीक है. In terms of absolute numbers, the food grain production was 141.4 million tons, ठीक है. So this grew by 2 times, ठीक है. So population multiplied by 1.45 times, and the food grain production grew by 2 times, ठीक है. So in absolute number, food grain production was how much? 141.4 million tons, ठीक है. So this is an important figure that you need to remember. Next is the fish production. So far as fish production is concerned, fish contributes to the economy of Odisha in a huge number. So we just saw the figure, and the fish production in lakh million tons in Odisha, so far as the figures are concerned, it is 10.5 lakh million tons, ठीक है. You can see in 2014-15 it was only 4.7, ठीक है, in lakh million tons, but this is 10.5 lakh million tons. So this is a huge amount of food production that is there in Odisha. So this increase is again phenomenal. This increment is more than double, ठीक है. More than 100% increment has taken place so far as the fish production of Odisha is concerned. Now moving on to next important subheading, which is called the fish consumption. So fish production, it grew, obviously it grew more than double in 1 decade. But fish consumption also has grown, ठीक है. So the fish consumption in Odisha was 17.7, ठीक है, kg per year. So this is the per capita fish consumption in Odisha, and this is the compound annual growth of 6.1%. So the growth rate of Odisha so far as the fish consumption is concerned, it was the 6.71%, ठीक है. So this is an important. Now moving on to next important, and the increment was from which year? 2014-15 to 2022-23, ठीक है. So the base year that we are calculating here is 2014-15, ठीक है. So from 2014-15 to 2022-23, this amount of increment has taken place in the consumption of the fishes in Odisha, ठीक है. So now moving on to next important subheading, which is the fish production. So fish production, we talked about it, ठीक है. So in terms of fish production, when it is compared with the other states, the Jharkhand, ठीक है, Jharkhand has one of the lowest fish consumption, fish production in terms of when it compared with the other states, and Andhra Pradesh is the state which produces the highest amount of fishes in India. Okay, so this is an important chart that you need to remember. You have to compare with the other states as well. Okay, when you are reading the economic survey, you should not only see the small picture of Odisha only, you have to compare with the other states as well. Okay, so for this reason I have brought the chart as well when it is compared with the other states. Okay, so Andhra Pradesh has the highest amount of the fish production in India, which is 48.1 lakh million ton per year, and next is West Bengal. So West Bengal's position is the second largest. Next is Karnataka, third one is Odisha, then Gujarat, then Kerala, then Uttar Pradesh, then Tamil Nadu, then Madhya Pradesh, then Jharkhand. So Odisha's position is where? It is fourth. So far as the fish production of other states are concerned, when it is compared with the other states, the position of India is fourth. So this is an important point. Now moving on to next important subheading, which is the prices. What is the prices, the movement of prices in Odisha? At all India level, the inflation in 2023-24 was 5.4%. So India mein jo inflation ka level tha, which was 5.4%. But rising prices of India was the supply side. So India mein jo inflation tha, that is mainly due to supply side, because India saw the monsoons. There has been cyclones. Monsoon mein there was extreme climate events. Monsoon was not regular. So for this reason there was lack of supply. There was irregular supply of commodities in the market. So for this reason the inflation happened in India, and there was wars as well. At the global level there was war taking place, for instance the Russia-Ukraine war. So all these things basically affected the supply side of India's economy. So you have to remember one point, that the inflation that currently that India is facing is because of the supply side issues, not the demand side issue. People have money to buy, people can afford the goods and services, but the supply side is constrained. So you have to know this point, and this is again pointed out by the economic survey. In 2023-24, the inflation in Odisha was 6.5% higher than all India average. So inflation was again higher than Odisha. Although GDP growth of Odisha was higher, but inflation was also higher. And you can see in the figure, if it is compared with the other states, 17 major states, inflation of Odisha was second highest. So if you compare the inflation of Odisha with the other states as well, the inflation of Odisha was the second highest. Haryana saw the highest percentage of inflation, which is 6.6%. and Odisha's was second, and then third is Rajasthan. You just need to remember these three states. And other 15 states saw the inflation which is lower than that of Odisha. Now moving on to next important phenomena, or next important topic, which is the employment. So employment is very important. In the last topic, in the last economic survey of India, that I said that the economy of India is facing the challenge of unemployment. There is huge amount of unemployed youths in India. That is more than 50%, and they are not eligible for the employment as well. They do not possess the quality to be employed. But what economic survey of Odisha says is that out of total labor force, 96%, that is 205.3 lakh crore are employed. 96% of total labor force of Odisha are employed. This according to this economic survey. Out of total employed labor force, between age group, that is the people above the age group of 15, 64% are self-employed. And remaining 36% are either regular wage salaries, and others are working. So you have to remember this point, that out of total employed labor force, 64% are self-employed. Self-employment is again higher in rate in Odisha, that is 64%, and the remaining 36% are either regular or salaried. So this is an important point. Now moving on to next table, you can see in the table that in agriculture sector we discussed about it. So in the agriculture sector, the contribution is 48.1%, ठीक है. सो इन एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर यू कैन सी so in the agriculture sector you can see the contribution was 48.1%, ठीक है, and industry was 25.8% and services sector contributed 26.1%, ठीक है. But when it comes to type, okay, which type contributes what percent to the economy, the casual worker contributed 21.5% in Odisha's economy, ठीक है. And talking about the regular or wage salaried people, 14.4% was the contribution of the regular salaried people. Self-employed contributed 64%, ठीक है. These figures are very important. So we talked about the contribution of different sectors in Odisha's economy, ठीक है. These figures are very important. Now talking about the type, the self-employed people contributed to the highest percentage in the GSDP of Odisha, ठीक है. So this is an important point. Now moving on to next important topic, which is the workforce distribution compared with top per capita states. So workforce distribution, talking about the workforce, ठीक है. So when it compared with the other states, ठीक है. So Telangana, in Telangana you can see agriculture and allied sector has contribution which is the 47%, ठीक है. But in Odisha it is 48%. In Karnataka 46%, ठीक है. In Gujarat it is 42%, in Haryana it is 30%, in Tamil Nadu it is 29%. So if you compare the economy of Odisha, ठीक है, contribution of different sectors in the economy of Odisha with the other top 5 per capita states in India, the contribution, if you can see, the agriculture का contribution है, there is lower in other states as compared to Odisha, ठीक है. So what this economic survey of Odisha says is that the economy of Odisha should move towards the other sectors, which is the services and the industry sector, ठीक है. So those people who are employed in the agriculture sector should be moved to industry and the agriculture sector and the services sector. So this is the recommendation of the Odisha's economic survey 23-24, ठीक है. So now moving on to next important topic, which is the per capita income. So per capita income of Odisha is nearly 1.6 lakh, ठीक है, as compared with India's 1.8 lakh. So per capita income of Odisha is lower than that of India, ठीक है. And the gap between per capita income of Odisha and India is 12%, ठीक है. So this is the 12% gap between Odisha and India's. And you can see the growth of per capita income of Odisha, ठीक है. So this is the current figure of the Odisha's per capita income. Now moving on to next important topic, which is the per capita income of other states. So if you compare the per capita income of other states when it with the Odisha, ठीक है. So you can see the chart here. This is a very important chart, ठीक है. From this chart you can know which states has the highest per capita income in India, ठीक है, and what are their per capita income, that is known by this chart. And this chart presents that the Telangana, ठीक है, Telangana has the highest amount of per capita income among its population, ठीक है, that is 3.1 lakh crore, ठीक है. So 3.1 lakh is the per capita income of people of Telangana. Then there is Karnataka, then there is Haryana, then there is Tamil Nadu, ठीक है. And Odisha's position is 11th, ठीक है. So this is the position of Odisha so far as the per capita income of Odisha is concerned, that is 1.45 lakh, ठीक है. So you just remember 1.45 lakh. You do not need to remember the entire figure, just remember that it is lower than the national average of 1.69 lakh, ठीक है. So this is an important, and the position is 11th. Now moving on to next important subheading, which is called labor and workforce participation rate, ठीक है. So labor participation rate in India is higher than that of Odisha, ठीक है. So this is an again important point. Labor force participation point is higher in Odisha when it is compared with India. So India में जो labor force है कितना है, 57.9%, ठीक है. But in Odisha this figure is 61.3%. And why is there a high number of labor force participation rate in Odisha? The reason is that there is increased in the number of the women labor force participation rate. ठीक है, so more number of women in Odisha are coming in the labor force. So for this reason, the Odisha's labor force participation rate is increasing, and worker population ratio, ठीक है, worker population ratio again has increased, that is 58.9 percentage point, which is again higher than the Indian average. So India में जो worker population ratio है, that is how much? 56, ठीक है, 56%. But if you see the overall picture of Odisha, the worker population ratio is 58.9%. ठीक है, so this is again led by the women population ratio, worker population ratio. Again, the participation of women in the workforce in Odisha is higher than the national average. ठीक है, so this is an important point, that the women empowerment in Odisha is happening at the ground. ठीक है, so in actual level as well, in the ground level as well, the empowerment of women in Odisha is real, and this is shown by this economic survey. ठीक है, so you have to remember this point. ठीक है, this is very important term. ठीक है, this is very important figures. You can quote these figures in the mains answer writing. ठीक है, so how much is the women labor force participation rate, how much is the worker population ratio in Odisha, etc. etc. ठीक है, so this is an important point. Now moving on to next topic, which is the fiscal developments. So talking about the fiscal development in 2023-24, the budget size of government of Odisha was 2.3 lakh crore. ठीक है, and the state has seen the growth in total revenue receipt supported by buoyant tax, in particular non-tax revenue. So this is an important term that is seen in this economic survey. So you have to remember one term, that is the tax buoyancy. ठीक है, so what is tax buoyancy? Tax buoyancy. So what is this? Tax buoyancy is the term which describes that how much percentage the tax collection increases if the GDP increases. So tax buoyancy is given by the formula, the tax collection divided by GDP growth. ठीक है, so when GDP grows, by what percentage the tax collection grows is given by the tax buoyancy. Now you can see, if you see the economic survey of Odisha, ठीक है, what it portrays is that the economy of Odisha has seen a buoyant tax growth. ठीक है, that means when GDP of economy Odisha grew, the tax collection of Odisha also grew, and the tax collection grew by higher amount than the GDP. ठीक है, so that means what is the tax buoyancy of Odisha? That is 1.04. so this is the tax buoyancy of Odisha. So for every 10% growth in the GSDP of Odisha, there is 10.4% growth in the tax collection. ठीक है, so that is tax collection is higher than the growth of GDP. So this is an important point. ठीक है, and so far as the expenditure of Odisha is concerned, nearly 70% of the budget is directed towards the development spending, and nearly 21% towards the non-development spending. ठीक है, so 70% of the budget, that is a huge chunk of the budget, goes towards the development of the states. ठीक है, and for the non-development purposes, what constitutes the non-development purposes? For instance, giving salaries, administrative expenses. ठीक है, so these are the non-development expenditures. ठीक है, वहाँ पे जो state का expenditure है वो कम है, that is only 30%. ठीक है, so this is an important point, and a substantial portion of development spending is allocated towards education. ठीक है, so education में जो spending है उड़ीसा गवर्नमेंट का, that is very high. ठीक है, ऑल इंडिया लेवल में द स्पेंडिंग ऑफ द GDP as a percentage of GDP in education is very low. ठीक है, that is less than 3%. But in Odisha, the spending you can see is the 17.2% of total development expenditure. ठीक है, so this is a huge percentage of the spending on the education. ठीक है, and the total merchandise exports, so far as the exports are concerned, ठीक है, the Odisha increased, the merchandise exports of Odisha increased from 51.7 thousand crore in 2019-20 to 89.8 thousand crore in 2022-23. ठीक है, so this is an again huge amount of increment in the merchandise export. ठीक है, this is an important figure, and this figure is 20.2% compound annual rate growth rate, ठीक है, CAGR. So in terms of compound annual growth rate, the merchandise export of Odisha grew by 20.2 percentage point, ठीक है. Now moving on to next important term, which is the state is ranked 10th among the major state in terms of merchandise exports. So if you compare with the other states, मर्चेंडाइज एक्सपोर्ट्स में इंडिया जो ओडिशा का पोजीशन है वो क्या है, 10th है, ठीक है. सो दिस इज एन इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट एंड दैट इज द 2.5% ऑफ द शेयर ऑफ द ओवरऑल value of India. So if you see the overall merchandise trade of India, merchandise export of India, the contribution of Odisha is 2.5%, ठीक है. So all these figures are very important. So when you are reading the economic survey and budget, ठीक है, इकोनॉमिक सर्वे एंड बजट में जो इंपॉर्टेंट टर्म्स है, जैसे आई एक्सप्लेन्ड अबाउट दी टैक्स बॉयंसी, ठीक है, आई एक्सप्लेन्ड अबाउट अदर इंपॉर्टेंट टर्म विच इज दी माल्थुसियन थ्योरी ऑफ पॉपुलेशन, ठीक है. दीज टर्म्स आर इंपॉर्टेंट, बट other important things in the budget and economic survey is the terms as well as the figures, ठीक है. So data and facts are very important. So all these figures you have to remember, ठीक है. So these things can be your notebook. You can revise these things before your exam, and these points can be asked directly in the prelims as well as in the mains, and in the interview as well. You need to know these figures, ठीक है. And the first 3 states in terms of highest share of merchandise exports from India includes Gujarat, 3.1%, ठीक है. So this is an important fact. जो गुजरात का कंट्रीब्यूशन है मर्चेंडाइज एक्सपोर्ट में वो कितना है, 33.1%, ठीक है. दैट इज अराउंड 1/3 ऑफ द एंटायर इंडियाज मर्चेंडाइज एक्सपोर्ट इज फ्रॉम गुजरात, ठीक है. सो फॉर दिस रीजन गुजरात इज वन ऑफ द वाइब्रेंट स्टेट इन इंडिया. And for this reason, the ports in India are very vibrant. For instance, the Kandla port, ठीक है, Adani ports. So all these ports are growing, and the industrialized cities are growing in Gujarat, ठीक है. So for this reason, Gujarat is an important state in India. Then there is Maharashtra. महाराष्ट्र का contribution कितना है, 16.1% है. Then Tamil Nadu, ठीक है, and Odisha का contribution है 10th. That is the 2.5%. Major contributors to state exports are metallurgical products, ठीक है, which is the 69.1%. So metallurgical products, for instance, copper, iron, etc. contributes around 69%, ठीक है. And minerals, which contributes 15.2%. And then there are the engineering, chemical and allied products, which contributes 9.6%. ठीक है. So this is an important, so far as Odisha is concerned, as we talked about it, the Odisha is a industrialized state. The industry contribute to the Odisha's GDP at a very high number. So for this reason you have to remember the contribution of different sectors, different merchandise products in the Odisha's industrial GDP, ठीक है. So between 2019-20 and 2022-23, the share of metallurgical products has increased by 21 percentage points, ठीक है. So metallurgical जो metallurgy का contribution है, that has increased by 21%. This is an important point again, ठीक है, and that is 69%. So this 69% has increased from 48%, which was in 2019-20. So 2019-20 में इंडिया जो ओडिशा का कंट्रीब्यूशन, जो मेटलर्जी का कंट्रीब्यूशन कितना था, दैट वाज 48%, ठीक है. So this is an important point. And trends of exports from Odisha and its composition. So you can see that the metallurgical products, that is 69.1%. Then there is the engineering and chemical and allied sector, which has contribution of 9.6%, ठीक है. And in terms of total exports, ठीक है, 2021-22 में total export कितना था, 127.2%, ठीक है. Now this has decreased to 89.8 lakh crore, ठीक है. So total export जो ओडिशा का है, that has decreased. So in conclusion, what we can say is that Odisha's economy is growing. Odisha's economy, the contribution of Odisha's economy in the India's GDP is also growing, ठीक है. So the contribution of Odisha's GDP in India is very high. Despite that, the Odisha's GDP is highly reliant on the agriculture and allied sector, ठीक है. So for this reason, this Odisha's economy survey, the economic survey of Odisha 2024-25 basically recommends that the workforce has to be moved towards other sectors, which are the services sector and the industry sector. ठीक है. So for this reason, there has to be more investment in the economy, in the industrial sector as well as the services sector. So these were all important facts about the economic survey of Odisha 2023-24. So these were the economic survey facts which are very, very important for the OPSC exam. So having said that, I am concluding today's session. We'll meet again in the next video. Till then, take care. Thank you.